So, I'm actually not really a very big fan of Noah Samsen. In fact, I've recorded a couple of different video responses to him. I haven't actually uploaded because they were long as sin, because I talked a lot, because he said a lot of stupid nonsense. In today's video, however, I should be able to get it up because it's not going to be too long, but it is, I think, going to be very important. And that was a couple of points he was making in a video response he did to, I believe the young lady's name is Patient Zena. Now, I'll preface by saying I actually don't agree with Patient Zena on everything she says. In fact, sometimes I think that she's just wrong. Sometimes I think that she's a little too, dare I would say normie, a little too on the surface. She doesn't really go quite deep and complex enough to really warrant a good video discussion, I feel. Sometimes, not always, sometimes. So I'm not responding because I want to defend her. I could care less. In fact, I recently recorded a video where I actually criticized her a little bit. No, instead I want to talk about the idea of representation, because there's something Noah said that I'm very passionate about, or have been passionate about for very many years, that annoyed me greatly. So I'm going to be skipping a huge chunk of this video. Instead, I'm going to play you the conclusion that Noah comes to. This is what Noah believes that Patient Zena's video on, oh, you guys aren't even aware. Patient Zena's a video on The Little Mermaid, on how race swapping and not make good representation, or something of the other. I actually made a video similar to hers a couple of years ago that I actually think was a little bit better, which I'll explain, I guess, as this video goes on. But that aside, he responds to her video. And he wants to make the case that her video or the arguments presented in her video can be used as a veneer or can be used as a way for racist people to dog whistle their racism against or to reflect their umbrage against the recent casting of The Little Mermaid being played by Halle Bailey, I think her name is. The beautiful lady, but I just want to say Halle Berry, but she's not Halle Berry. She's Halle Bailey, I think. I don't know. Don't care. Point is, Noah took umbrage with that. So again, I'm going to play his conclusion so you guys can understand what he was trying to attempt to argue for.
And they're echoing her conclusion that they really just want to see more unique non-white stories. However, by glossing over the actual nuance of this situation, by failing to include any of the very visible examples of racism that drove this backlash, and by giving in to the false framing that this casting is somehow at odds with standalone non-white centric films, I do think that this video serves to normalize white supremacist rhetoric in a way that might not be intended. Most of the points being raised here are fine when made in a vacuum. However, when they're made in opposition to the casting of a black actor in a white fish character role, their most visible function is to validate racism.
So that's his conclusion, which is a little interesting, right? To start with the end and not the beginning, and that's because I don't really want to go through the whole of this video. It's a video response to a video. No, instead, what I want to do is pick out some points that really reflects just how ignorant Noah is on the topic of representation, particularly for black people, and why he seems to not be able to understand why race swapping is quite the insult, or why race swapping is not a good example of representation, why it should never be used as a form of representation in any form of storytelling. And the obvious reason is rather simple, which I will expand upon as this video goes on, and that is, race swapping doesn't make sense within the logic of a story. What does that mean? It means that you cannot take a character that was established to be a white person and then swap them out for a black person and pretend that nothing in that story changes once that swap has been made. Because you know, and I know, that black men and black women are not treated like white men and white women. Anyhow, Noah, take us away.
casting, and that's got to count for something among the fandom, right? Because that's their lady. So Patience's conclusion in this video is that instead of race swapping these characters, we need more black stories. Stop the pandering remakes and make new, good, non-white centered stories instead.
I do agree that representation matters, and I think it is beautiful to see the reactions of young black girls seeing themselves represented as Disney princesses, and I think they should absolutely have that, but it should be done properly. And this isn't the way to do it properly.
This is by far the best reason one could give for disagreeing with Bailey's casting. It's the most popular reason, found in plenty of other YouTube videos and many comment sections. And it's also, I think, profoundly unconvincing. While I completely agree that we do need more stories like this conclusion represents a false dichotomy. They're saying that instead of Black Ariel, we need more black stories, but the obvious question in response to that is, why not both?
Now, you see, Noah, the reason why you think that that's a reasonable question to ask is, and pardon my elitism here, you're not a black person. You're not a black man. You don't relate to the experiences of black people. You don't see black people's stories being told on the big screen and mangas and comic books. And I mean, the best representation you've seen probably is all the same struggle porn of poor black person becomes entertainer and yada yada yada. That whole empire thing you probably see. That the only real way that a black man can get up from the hood is not through any intellectual pursuits, but only through entertainment, sports, and rapping, and sometimes trapping while rapping. You don't really understand the nuance of what it means to be a black man and to experience the world as a black person. Tell me, Noah, a bit of a question I must ask you. Have you ever been told that you can't date somebody because they aren't attracted to black men? You ever been told that you can't be with somebody because their father would literally disown her if she found herself with a black person? Your character not in question, who you are not in question, but your skin, Noah. Your skin in question. Something that you had no control over. Hey Noah, got a little bit of a question for you. You ever instill fear in people just by existing, Noah? You ever just be and people are worried by your presence? I've experienced that, Noah. Funny thing about that is I'm a rather polite, soft-spoken individual that don't really do nothing to nobody whenever I'm out and about. And yet, despite the fact that I don't do nothing to nobody when I'm out and about, even I have still elicited fear. Now, to be fair, I am 6'1". Perhaps it is indeed my stature as well that terrifies young white women. I don't know. Or maybe it might be all of the different stereotypes and the socialization that comes with being black. The interesting thing about being a black person is, no, I'm probably not even the greatest representation of black people, on account of my skin is a bit lighter than most anyway. You see, Noah, the thing is, being a black person changes the way the world reacts to you. Representation cannot be as simple and as skin deep as just putting a black person on screen. You can't take Liu Kang, champion of Mortal Kombat, and make him black, and then say, here you go, representation. You're black, he's black. Square. It erases the history of that character. It wouldn't even make any sense if you made Liu Kang black. What are you going to do, change his name to Liu Quan? How does it even make sense that a Shaolin monk orphan trains to be one of the best defenders of Earthrealm? How did this black person get to China to begin with to lose their parents to then be taken in by Shaolin monks? The entire integrity of the story is goofy and has to be over-explained to get there. Otherwise, its internal logic is just broken by that change alone. In fact, let's ask ourselves a very interesting question. How does one retain melanin in their skin in the depths of the ocean? How can Ariel indeed be a black person? Magic, perhaps. Let's just say that. But the question is, will her blackness have any effect on the story? I have no way to know. I haven't seen the movie yet. But I can guarantee you, with a lot of certainty, It will not. And that's the problem with representation. Jimmy Olsen and the Supergirl. I've only watched a couple of episodes, but they changed this short, mousy ginger man into a tall, maybe 6'3", I think he was, handsome black dude that was somewhat of a love interest to Kara from what I remember. I didn't keep up with Supergirl, but I saw a couple of episodes. Did the world change? Did the world reflect the fact that Jimmy Olsen was black? No. And that is the problem. You can't just take a character, and particularly it seems a bit goofy that constantly it's always these redhead ginger characters. You can't just take a character, palette swap them, and then tell us to be happy that they're just there if they're not actually reflecting the experiences that black people are having. You want to know what made Black Panther so interesting, so unique? What made Killmonger such an interesting and unique villain? Despite the fact that numerous people who said Black Panther's just not all that special. Black Panther, well, who cares about it? Black Panther, it's just typical Marvel film. The reason why it resonated with so many black people is because they could see the struggle in Killmonger and in T'Challa. To intellectually break that down would make this video hilariously long. But if we just stick to Killmonger, a young man who was raised on the street, raised in the hood, he lost his father and he didn't have any connection to his heritage. Now, hey, that sounds a lot like a lot of black people here in America. No connection to their heritage, no idea where they came from, where their tribe was in Africa, only have a history of slavery around. Killmonger sees the destitution of his people around him and says, wait a minute, we could do so much more with what we have, and he struggles and fights to obtain that. What makes Killmonger so interesting in his villainy is the fact that he had a great point. His methods, awful and cutthroat and probably should not have been done, but the points that he was making was something that resonated with black people. A feeling of seeing our people destitute, seeing our people weak, seeing our people not as strong as they could be and wanting to change that. The reason why, Noah, you can make the dumbass statement, can't we just have both? As if it's the same to just take a character and just paint them a different skin is ridiculous. It's ludicrous. It's stupid. You can only say that because you don't have an understanding of what it actually means to be a black person and relate to these stories. Continue.
Disney has been remaking their old films in live-action format for a while now. And while yes, many, if not most of them are trash, the live-action Little Mermaid was inevitable. It was going to be made regardless of who was playing Ariel. And of course it's not out yet, so it may not even be trash, but having a black lead in a movie that is 100% going to get made doesn't delete the script of a different original black-centered story from Disney's Google Docs, right? No, that is not what happens.
Yeah, no, but check this out. Notice how that script that apparently exists, according to your hypothetical, was not put into production. What was put into production was a remake of The Little Mermaid to tell us the same story that has nothing to do with blackness, the relationship black people have in America to each other, to white people, to white culture, just a fantastical story in general. It's just The Little Mermaid, but black. It's skin deep. If anything, it's hollow. Why is it even important that the young lady is black? And to that extent, it would be a great argument, right? What difference does it make if she's black if the story has nothing to do with it? But then, of course, that would be the whole of the argument. Why should she be black if it has nothing to do with the story? If the story doesn't change to reflect the fact that now she is a black person, why have we made the change? And the answer, I believe, is rather simple. It's to generate both controversy. It's to generate some type of pandering to this nuance, or to create pandering, not even any nuance, in order to get more black people into seats of these theaters, to be simply appeased just by, once again, the veneer of something rather than the actual portrayal and character that should be important. And honestly, what would have been a much better argument for you to have made here is honestly to suggest that race doesn't matter to begin with. That stories are timeless and great because these elements and characters can be reflected far beyond simply just the way these people look. But of course, that's not where you're going to go with this, so Continue.
The movie's already being made. Backlash over bad Disney remakes doesn't have to mean backlash over this casting, but they are being grouped together here, and you don't have to look far to figure out why. Another question I have about this conclusion here is like, were you asking for black stories before this controversy?
No. No, Noah. I was not asking for more black stories before this controversy. I created them. You see, because when I was young, I had a thought to myself. I said, I find it interesting that I don't see very many main characters that look similar to me. They've got a cool, badass afro. They're kind of nerdy, but still nice, polite. A little snarky, a little snippy here and there. They do what's right. They protect their friends, their families, and they fight monsters. They fight villains. They have these great, fantastical stories. I said, I don't really see that very often. Why don't I make one? No, I didn't ask for these bloody stories to be made, brother. I made them myself. I didn't sit here and wait for someone to do it. I wrote it. And I have many other ideas as well for strong, positive, fantastic representations of black people. That isn't just thugs. That isn't just struggle porn. It isn't just them just selling weed. It isn't just the same nonsense over and over, as if black people can't be more than just poor people in a destitute area. That they can't reflect virtue. They can't reflect different positive values. They can't be greater than the fact that they were slaves once in America. Tired of that. I wanted more. So I decided to write more. I have many ideas of great, wonderful stories. So no, Noah, I didn't ask for more black stories. I wanted to create them. Young Ripper, Eric July, made them. You see, the ridiculousness of such a statement, again, shows to me, I find it interesting that you just have no idea what you're talking. I don't even understand why you felt the need to sit here and record this video to talk about the racism or the racist dog whistling of all these different conservatives. When you, Noah, you have no attachment, no consideration, no thought to the importance of these stories. Think hard, Noah. Think very hard. Let me paint you a bit of a picture now, shall I? So Static Shock, is, in its nature, a black interpretation of Spider-Man. It is. It is inspired by Peter Parker. Virgil Hawkins, nerdy, intelligent kid who gains superpowers and uses his cleverness to solve his problems and defeat his foes. But you know what splits the difference between them? You want to know why Static, despite the fact that he's clearly inspired by Spider-Man, is so different and unique? Multiple different cultural things. One, the association with electricity as a power for black people, as a homage to Black Lightning. But more than that, how Static comes to the understanding of with great power comes great responsibility is a lot different than how Peter Parker did. Whereas Peter Parker learns that his selfishness kind of is the reason why his uncle died, Virgil gets the opportunity to hurt the very person who was bullying him. But because of the fact that he remembers that his own mother was killed by a gun, killed in gang violence, even though he had the opportunity to participate in the same gang violence that leads to death and destruction, Virgil made the choice to not be that man. And that, Noah, that is what representation is. Virgil Hawkins represents a black man that had a choice to be a gang member who used violence to get what he wants, to seek revenge against those who has wronged him, or to be a man of character, to do what's right and use the power you have to protect the people that can't protect themselves. That, Noah, that's representation. That's why it's important to have these characters. You can't just make Peter Parker white. I'm sorry. You can't just make Peter Parker black and then just say, here you go. Black, he black, you black. Done. There is a history. There's a culture. There's a story. There's a meaning to what it means to be black. That Virgil Hawkins as a character, despite the fact that his inspiration and even his portrayal is very similar to Spider-Man, reflects closer more to young black men than it could to young white men. That is what makes representation for black characters important. That's why you can't have both, you muppet. You can't just take a white character and paint them and say, here, nothing changes. Context doesn't change, the story doesn't change, the themes don't change, nothing changes, they're just black now. Despite the fact that we know in the world we live in, a lot of stuff changes when you're black.
Not even patients necessarily, right? But any of these media people, the primary sources of this backlash. Are we really supposed to believe that they care about black stories? I think, and maybe this is just a hot take, but I think they don't care. They don't care at all, not one bit. And the reason for that is, well, the only time they seem to talk about it is when the sanctity of white characters is being threatened by wokeness. Wokeness being, again, black people, black actors. That's what they mean when they say it. They pull out their what if Black Panther was white trap card, their racist black James Bond impressions, only when they feel like their white identity is being erased or replaced. Perhaps many of the people coming to this conclusion, evidenced in the comments, do actually care and do want to see more standalone, diverse Hollywood films. I really have no reason to believe that they don't. However, it is frustrating, right? Because clearly these desires, many of them genuine, have been taken advantage of in this backlash. They've been co-opted by people who definitely don't care about black stories and used as a thin mask to hide their racist dog whistling. And I just want more people to understand that that is what's going on.
So I essentially let him talk there to show you guys that I'm not making it up. Like that's what he really believes. That there might be some people out here, like myself, who genuinely find umbrage here. But what we're actually doing is we're giving credence to the racist people. That we shouldn't be able to vent these frustrations out because they're not actually earnest, because you guys can just have both. It's okay. It's not actually an insult that doesn't really make sense. No. It's not just pandering, to get you guys to be quiet, and be content with the table scraps of different film portrayals and whatnot. No. You guys can just do both, even though we kind of really don't. No. We're being used by all of these racists on the internet here. These people are so racist that they want black people to have their own stories, huh? I guess that's not what you're implying. I guess what you're implying is that they're so racist that they don't want their white characters to be replaced by black characters. Why is that even racist to begin with, now that I think about it? In fact, to be honest with you, why would anyone want a character to be replaced when you can actually have a good character, have its own stories, have their own adventures, and change and grow on their own? In conclusion, listen, I gave my opinion on this a couple of years ago. Honestly, I don't really think Ariel is a great character. I don't really like her all that much. From what I remember, when I watched The Little Mermaid, she wasn't very inspiring. There's some good qualities to her. I mean, she is kind-hearted to an extent. I mean, she didn't really save someone just from the goodness of her heart, but because she was like romantically attached to him. It would have been better to kind of see her be a little bit more heroic beyond that, but seeing a young lady, though reckless, abandoned for a whole family so she could go get married to some dude she doesn't really know, might be a more adult, mature reading of what occurred, but that is literally what happened. I'm not sure if I really want young black women to identify with that character. There might be some more nuance to Ariel that I'm just being uncharitable about, but from what I remember, she's not a great portrayal of women, okay? She's not. More importantly than that, though, if you want me to move a little bit further, I honestly, truly, deeply think that stories should transcend a little bit beyond race. A lot of the time. Most of the time, honestly. I really do think that we should be able to read stories and to read these legends and to watch these movies and to learn and grow from people's relationships and people's experiences that sometimes aren't even similar to ours but completely different. And sometimes I think that it is great and validating and very important to have characters that are similar to us. I think that we most definitely need a healthy balance of both, where we're able to see different cultures and get different ideas and learn from them, as well as being able to see our own culture be celebrated and to see lessons from our own culture being portrayed and given to other people. I don't really think that it's fair that the most popular portrayal of black people are athletes, rappers, entertainers, and kind of just thugs. I think that we can have more fantastic portrayals of black men. For example, look at Jamie Foxx in Day Shift. Why can't we have more stories like that? Black vampire hunters, werewolf hunters, black explorers, black people doing anything cool and awesome. Why couldn't we have a black version of Kingsman? Maybe it doesn't even necessarily all the main cast have to be black people, but why can't a main black character be out there, being a good guy, helping people, protecting the world, and doing what's right? There's no particular reason, I would honestly say, probably apart from the fact that it probably won't make the big bucks in China, but that goes well beyond the scope of this video now, doesn't it? The point that I'm making is this. Noah Samsen is a buffoon, and he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he has no connection or no relation to black people, I'm sure, because they would have given him a much stronger, better nuanced issue, a much better look at this. That honestly, just being told to be happy that someone looks like you and is on the screen doing stuff, not representation make. Or at the very least, it's not good representation. It's not good to only be able to be given characters that aren't actually authentic to the black experience if the idea is to give us representation. Again, do I think that stories have a lot of value, important value, beyond just race? 100%. But sometimes I do think that it's important to have characters that reflect the experiences that the audience member is having. And you're not going to be able to get that if the only type of representation, or the main type of representation, is just race swapping be the case. There has to be more, and there has to be something deeper to the portrayals of these characters. That includes their history, what they think, and how, importantly, most importantly, how the world relates to them and how the world deals with them. There's something unique to the black experience that I think can make for some fantastic stories. And I certainly intend on crafting those stories and producing them for you people if I have the opportunity. I'm going to work towards getting that opportunity. Don't you guys worry. I'm going to try. If I fail, I fail. But at least I will absolutely try to get there for you guys, because I think that these stories are absolutely worth telling. I mean, not just because I created them, but because I think there's going to have value to a lot of young men and hopefully to some young ladies too. In conclusion, Noah is a moron, and I legitimately disrespect him, and I'm tired of his smarmy, smug, liberal woke BS thinking that he can come in and just say a bunch of nonsense and that it's going to be okay because he has a whole bunch of people blowing a bunch of smoke up his butt because all he's ever done is just tell them what they want to hear. The truth of the matter is this. I don't give a crap if there are a bunch of racist people who are mad that Ariel is a black person in this new film. It means little to me. I honestly think racist people hurt themselves more than they hurt other people, but that goes beyond the scope of this video too. The important thing is this. That representation is piss poor. And I think there are some better stories that should have been told in lieu of the bloody Little Mermaid. Halle Bailey is a beautiful lady, and it would have been fantastic if she was portraying a great, strong, original black character and not friggin' Ariel. So with that being said, I certainly hope you guys got something out of today's video. I doubt it. But if you did, go and click the like button. Shoot. Go and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.